So in this initial survey of literature reviews, we come to stage 4. And stage 4 is the writing. Now, hopefully, by the time you arrive at stage 4, you've written summaries along the way, you've made notes of your analysis. And when you're thinking about writing, the really critical way, the absolute best way that the forms are for good writing is an argument form, or what you call a narrative form. Two things are very closely related as methods to write a literature review. Narrative form can simply spell out a kind of analysis which is based on, if you imagine an invisible timeline, and this is the position of article 1 or development 1, this is a position of development 2, this is a position, this series of positions of developments 3 and 4, right? If you do a timeline like this, you'll notice, and these each relate to different articles as well, which might be useful to you, that the narrative style of writing it really lays out what the world is. Okay, so you define what the problem set is in your own writing, and then you provide an analysis or a thread using the timeline. You start with the early articles which set out new developments perhaps, or new issues, or they discussed an implementation, which then led to later developments, which then led to later developments, which allows you to arrive at where you are now. And this narrative forms a very simple and clear way of presenting your literature review. So if I want to know what the state of affairs are for a particular technology and its development, or what its current state is, it's very useful to find an initial starting point. When I'm writing it, I define the problem set by saying that technology is broadly designed to tackle this problem set, and the problem set is this, this, and this, etc. So I lay that out using relevant details from the various articles I've read, for example. Then I follow a map structure which is based loosely on a timeline. Now, the difference between an argument and a narrative is that you string together your articles, but it's not necessarily in time order. So you would create a path through the articles, but they may not follow before and after. What you might find when you're forming an argument may look a little bit more like this. Let's say you have, say, 3 articles, right, at the center. You have 1 article here, and then you have a critical 4th article which leads you to your conclusion, or something like this, right? So you've got an initial article which sets out basic problem sets, some of the assumptions, some of the gaps, inconsistencies, issues within the industry. Then you map out some of the different aspects of responses to that through the various different intermediate articles, and they can be more complex than that. And then you can draw out from them a final, more recent implication. So the linkage is implication in an argument where these articles are implied or linked back to those, but they don't follow in a timeline. In the timeline narrative form, you link the articles in a kind of historical problem set and its development. And so what you're doing with a narrative is you're taking a problem set and showing how it evolves over a period of time, leading to where you are now with all the issues. With the argument, you're taking a problem set defined, you're just drawing it out in various different aspects, not necessarily in a time frame. So when you come to writing it, it's very important that it holds together. If your writing simply is small little analyses of each individual text on its own, they may gather value on their own, but they don't link together. You need a kind of linking thread. The most popular one is the narrative one, because it's very easy for human beings to understand this, a defined problem set and this evolution and development over a period of time, and responses, because one development leads to a change and that leads to further development or complications, and your conclusions could be related to the weaknesses that you've identified. for going forward, etc. And what I would discourage you from doing is certainly just taking your summaries, your analysis of each article, and just dropping them into a literature review write-up where they don't connect up. So there's no connecting thread. Now, these are just two. There are other ways, but I've given you, I suppose, if you come from a philosophy and humanities background, arguments are quite common and how they work. But if you haven't come from that background and you are completely nervous about it, the narrative structure is often the one that really works. So for final year students, I often ask students to justify their current research project or their final year project in terms of a narrative linking back a problem set and its evolution and how yours fits into that particular story. That's a very, very helpful and positive way of doing it. So that brings us to the end of the writing and these introductory videos. The purpose is to give you an understanding and an overall and some kind of framework to start thinking about when you get your next literature review, how you're going to approach it.